Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. Today, we're diving into a really sensitive and important topic,
Oh, yeah.
the Palestinian exodus of 1948,
Okay.
known as the Nakba,
Uh,
which means catastrophe in Arabic.
right.
We're going to be using excerpts from historian Ilan Pappe's book,
Yep.
The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine.
Right.
Now, our goal today is not just to rehash history, but to really understand
Yeah.
how different narratives of this event are constructed
hmm
and why it remains so intensely debated to this day.
Yeah, it's a fascinating look at how history is written, how perspective shapes our understanding, and ultimately, the power of language.
Absolutely. We'll uncover details about a secret Zionist committee called the Consultancy,
Okay.
their meticulous village files, and a massacre that, while less known than Day Yassin, was equally as brutal.
Oh, wow.
So get ready, because this is a deep dive into a pivotal moment in history.
For sure.
Um,
So before we get into those specifics,
okay.
let's set the stage a little bit. We're talking about Palestine under the British Mandate,
Okay.
a period marked by growing tensions
Right.
between the Jewish and Arab communities.
Yeah.
And the UN partition plan of 1947
Okay.
was an attempt to kind of address this, proposing separate Arab and Jewish states.
Right. And that plan was met with very mixed reactions. The Zionist leadership accepted it, while Palestinian leaders rejected it.
Right.
So as you can imagine, this set the stage for conflict.
Absolutely. Now, within this context,
Okay.
a group of Zionist leaders,
Mm.
including figures like David Ben-Gurion,
Okay.
formed a committee called the Consultancy.
Okay.
Their task was to plan for the future Jewish state.
All right.
What emerged from their work was Plan Dalet,
Okay.
a blueprint for Israeli military actions,
hmm
formulated in March 1948.
So if Plan Dalet was initially presented as a defensive strategy, how did Pappe reveal that it went beyond self-defense?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Were there dissenting voices within the consultancy? Who questioned the plan's true intentions?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And Pappe really delves into these nuances.
Okay.
While it was framed as defensive,
Mm-hmm.
Plan Dalet included elements that went far beyond protecting territory.
Okay.
There's evidence of strategic expulsions of Palestinians.
All right.
And this is where these meticulously compiled village files
Yeah.
become really crucial.
Okay, so let's unpack these village files.
Yeah.
We know that Zionist intelligence gathered detailed records on Palestinian villages,
Right.
including, leadership, resources, even potential troublemakers.
Mm-hmm.
But how did these files translate into actual actions on the ground?
Well, you see,
Yeah.
these files weren't just gathering dust.
Yeah.
They were meticulously organized
Okay.
with cross-references,
Mm-hmm.
detailed maps,
Okay.
even assessments of potential resistance leaders.
Yeah.
This level of detail suggests that these files weren't just for intelligence gathering,
Right.
but for actionable planning. They were used to identify strategic targets,
Mm-hmm.
potential resistance,
Yeah.
and even to predict population movements.
That's a chilling level of premeditation. It
Mhm.
suggests that the expulsion of Palestinians wasn't just a consequence of the conflict, but a deliberate part of the plan.
Exactly.
Right.
And as the conflict escalated,
Yeah.
we see a clear shift in tactics.
Okay.
What started as isolated retaliatory attacks transformed into something far more systematic.
Pappe recounts some truly disturbing examples of this. He
Yeah.
talks about violent reconnaissance missions,
Yeah.
essentially acts of intimidation designed to sow fear and disrupt communities.
Mm.
He also describes the use of psychological warfare
Yeah.
with threatening leaflets
Right.
dropped into villages,
Mhm.
warning of impending attacks and urging residents to flee.
Yeah. And tragically, the targeting of civilians
Yeah,
became increasingly common.
right.
This wasn't about military objectives.
Yeah.
This was about creating panic and a mass exodus of Palestinians.
One story from Pappe's book that really struck me
Yeah.
was about a group of women and children huddled in a basement in Haifa,
Oh, wow.
terrified as explosions rocked the city above them.
Yeah.
And a young girl, no older than 10,
Wow.
wrote in her diary about how the ground seemed to be shaking.
Oh, my God.
And how she longed for the day she could return to her home and play with her friends again.
It's heartbreaking to hear those personal accounts.
Yeah.
It brings home the human cost of these events
Yeah.
and how they ripped apart families and communities.
Absolutely.
Pappe really focuses on how these events played out in key locations.
Okay.
Take Haifa, for example,
Yeah.
a major port city.
What happened there?
Well, in Haifa, British inaction
Okay.
essentially paved the way for Zionist forces to take control. As a result,
Right.
A large portion of the Palestinian population was driven out.
Okay.
It's a stark example of how external forces
Yeah.
played a role in shaping the events on the ground.
So it sounds like a pattern was emerging with similar expulsions happening elsewhere.
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay.
Pape highlights other locations like Safad,
Mm-hmm.
where 100 elderly residents were expelled to Lebanon.
Right.
Even in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
Palestinians were driven from key neighborhoods,
Right.
illustrating how widespread this
Yeah.
expulsion was.
So this wasn't just a random displacement of people,
Right.
but a calculated campaign with devastating consequences.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And while we've talked about the systematic nature of these expulsions,
Yeah.
it's important to acknowledge that this campaign wasn't without its horrific moments,
Okay.
as evident in the case of the Tantura massacre.
Right.
This less-known event involved the systematic execution of Palestinian men after the village had surrendered.
That's a sobering reminder of the brutality involved.
Yeah.
And challenges any narrative that attempts to portray the Palestinian exodus as purely voluntary.
Indeed. The Tantura massacre exemplifies the darker side of this historical event.
Yeah.
It also raises questions about accountability and how these events have been addressed, or rather not addressed in the years since.
Right.
We'll delve deeper into that aspect later on in our deep dive.
So we've set the scene with Palestine under the British Mandate.
Right.
The formation of Plan Dalet,
Right.
the chilling detail of the village files,
Yeah.
and the systematic expulsions that took place, culminating in horrific events like the Tantura massacre.
Right.
Where do we go from here in our deep dive?
Next, we'll examine the aftermath of the Nakba,
Okay.
how this event shaped the Palestinian refugee problem,
Mm-hmm.
and Israel's ongoing refusal to allow the right of return.
Okay.
We'll also look at how this event continues to cast a long shadow over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to this day.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. The aftermath of the Nakba is where things get even more complex.
Right.
We're not just talking about the immediate displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians,
Yeah.
but the creation of a refugee crisis
Okay.
that continues to this day.
Right. And it's important to remember that this wasn't just about the physical loss of homes and land.
Exactly.
Right.
The Nakba shattered communities,
Yeah.
uprooted families,
Mm-hmm.
and left a deep psychological scar on the Palestinian people.
Pape doesn't shy away from describing what happened after the fighting officially ended.
Right.
He talks about a systematic effort
Yeah.
to erase any trace of Palestinian presence
Uh-huh.
in the newly established Israel.
It's a chilling detail, isn't it?
Right.
Pape writes about the deliberate destruction
Yeah.
of entire Palestinian villages.
Wow.
Not just abandoned homes,
Right.
but the razing of mosques, the uprooting of olive groves, the systematic dismantling of a people's history and culture from the landscape.
You mentioned earlier that the Tantura massacre raises questions about accountability.
Yeah.
What did Pape uncover about how these events were addressed,
Well,
or rather not addressed in the aftermath?
what's striking is the lack of accountability for the atrocities committed.
Yeah.
Pape reveals how narratives were manipulated,
Yeah.
often portraying the Palestinian exodus as voluntary,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the result of a calculated campaign of expulsion.
That's a powerful example of how language can be used to distort reality and shift blame.
Yeah,
It's like trying to rewrite history to fit a particular narrative.
exactly.
Right.
And it's important to note that all of this was happening against the backdrop of the Cold War.
Okay.
Israel skillfully navigated the geopolitical landscape,
Mm-hmm.
securing support from both the United States and the Soviet Union.
So they were able to deflect international pressure and scrutiny while solidifying their control over the newly acquired territories.
Precisely.
Right.
And this control extended to the Palestinians who remained within the borders of Israel.
Okay.
They were subjected to military rule,
Mm-hmm.
facing restrictions on movement, land ownership,
Yeah.
and even basic civil liberties.
Right.
Imagine living in a place where you're constantly treated as a suspect, where your rights are denied,
Right.
and your very presence is seen as a threat.
That must have been incredibly difficult,
Yeah.
living under such oppressive conditions.
Absolutely.
It seems like a continuation of the displacement and dispossession that began with the Nakba.
Absolutely. It's a complex and multifaceted issue.
Right.
On one hand,
Yeah.
you have the plight of the refugees scattered across the region and beyond,
Mm-hmm.
longing for their right to return.
Okay.
And on the other hand,
Yeah.
you have Palestinians within Israel
Right.
facing systematic discrimination and marginalization.
So we've explored the events leading up to the Nakba, the
Mm.
systematic expulsions,
Yeah.
and the devastating aftermath. But what does all of this mean for us today?
Well,
How does the Nakba continue to shape the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the 21st century?
The Nakba is not just a historical event.
Okay.
It's a living reality.
Yeah.
For millions of Palestinians,
Right.
the refugee issue remains unresolved, with generations of Palestinians living in camps,
Right.
scattered across the Middle East and beyond.
Yeah.
The right of return is a central demand
Okay.
for Palestinians,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a contentious issue that has stalled peace negotiations for decades.
And it's not just about physical displacement, right?
Absolutely.
The Nakba has had a profound psychological impact on the Palestinian people.
The trauma of the Nakba is deeply ingrained
Yeah.
in Palestinian collective memory.
Right.
It's a source of ongoing pain, anger, and resentment.
Right.
It shapes their identity,
Okay.
their political aspirations,
Yeah.
and their resistance to what they perceive as continued injustice.
That's a powerful testament to the enduring legacy of historical trauma.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that the past is not just something we read about in textbooks.
Right.
It shapes our present
Yeah.
and influences our future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we grapple with the complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict today,
Right.
understanding the Nakba, its causes,
Yeah.
and its consequences is absolutely crucial.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
From the historical context of Palestine under the British Mandate
Right.
to the aftermath of the Nakba
Hmm.
and its ongoing legacy.
Hmm.
But what are some of the key insights that emerge from Pappe's work? And how do they connect to the broader issues we've discussed?
One of the most significant takeaways from Pappe's work
Okay.
is the power of narrative.
All right.
He challenges the dominant Israeli narrative that portrays the Palestinian exodus as a voluntary act
Right.
and presents compelling evidence
Yeah.
of a systematic campaign of ethnic cleansing.
It seems like he's trying to reframe our understanding of this historical event,
Yeah.
urging us to move beyond simplistic explanations
Right.
and confront the uncomfortable truths that have been buried or ignored for so long.
Exactly.
Right.
He's pushing us to reconsider how we think about history,
Yeah.
to move beyond the traditional victors and vanquished narrative,
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledge the complexity,
Okay.
the nuance,
Right.
the multiple perspectives at play.
That seems particularly relevant
Yeah.
when we consider conflicts like the Israeli-Palestinian one, where historical narratives are often weaponized
Right.
to justify present-day policies and actions.
Absolutely.
Right.
By exposing the historical realities of the Nakba,
Yeah.
Pappe challenges the very foundations
Okay.
upon which the Israeli state was built.
Right.
He dismantles the myth of a land without a people for a people without a land,
Mm-hmm.
and exposes the systematic dispossession and displacement of the Palestinian people.
And that has profound implications for any future attempts at reconciliation, doesn't it?
Indeed,
Yeah.
any genuine effort to resolve the conflict
Right.
must acknowledge the historical injustices that have been committed.
Mm.
It must address the issue of the refugees and their right to return.
Right.
And it must be based on a shared understanding of the past,
Okay.
one that acknowledges the suffering of both sides,
Mm-hmm.
while also recognizing the different levels of responsibility and culpability.
So it seems like Pappe's work isn't just about revisiting a historical event.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the deep-rooted causes of the conflict,
Right.
the power dynamics at play, and the ongoing struggle for justice and recognition.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that struggle continues to this day.
Right.
The Nakba is not just a historical event.
Okay.
It's a living reality
Right.
for millions of Palestinians
Mm-hmm.
who remain displaced,
Yeah.
dispossessed,
Right.
and denied their fundamental rights.
It's a stark reminder that history isn't just about the past. It shapes our present
Right.
and has profound implications for our future.
And it challenges us to think critically
Yeah.
about how we engage with history,
Okay.
how we challenge dominant narratives,
Mm.
and how we work towards a more just and equitable future.
So after this deep dive into Pappe's work,
Yeah.
what stands out to you as a listener?
Oh.
What's resonating most strongly? Is it the meticulously planned nature of the ethnic cleansing, the devastating human impact of the Nakba, or perhaps the power of historical narratives to shape our understanding of the past and influence the present?
I think for me what's most impactful
Okay.
is Pappe's unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth.
Right.
even when it's uncomfortable, even when it challenges deeply held beliefs.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from presenting a very different perspective on the events of 1948. And in doing so, he forces us to confront the complexities of this conflict and the need for a more nuanced understanding of history.
Yeah, it definitely is a challenge to confront those uncomfortable truths.
Right.
Especially when they shake the foundations of our understanding of history. But like you said, it's essential for gaining a more nuanced and accurate perspective.
And it's not about pointing fingers or dwelling solely on blame. It's about understanding how these historical events continue to shape the present.
Yeah.
You know, how they influence the lives of both Israelis and Palestinians today.
Pappe's book certainly provides a lot to consider.
It does.
But it's just one perspective, one piece of a very complex puzzle.
Right.
Where should our listener go from here to further their understanding of this event and its legacy?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Pappe's work is an important starting point.
Okay.
But it's crucial to engage with the diversity of viewpoints. I'd encourage our listener to explore works by Israeli historians like Benny Morris or Avi Shlaim, who offer alternative perspectives on the events of 1948.
So we're encouraging a balanced approach.
Yes.
Exploring different narratives to gain a more comprehensive understanding of the complexities involved.
Exactly. And don't just stick to academic sources.
Right.
Seek out personal testimonies from both Palestinians and Israelis who lived through these events.
Yeah.
Hearing those firsthand accounts can provide a powerful emotional connection to the human cost of this conflict.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Sometimes those personal stories can reveal the nuances that are often lost in the broader historical narratives.
Absolutely.
Right.
And finally, remember that history is not static.
Okay.
It's an ongoing conversation, a constant process of re-examination and interpretation.
Right.
Be open to challenging your own assumptions and biases as you delve deeper into this topic.
It's a reminder that learning is a continuous journey.
Yeah.
And there's always more to uncover, more to understand, more to question.
Precisely. And as you continue your exploration, consider this.
Okay.
If the Nakba represents a catastrophic loss for the Palestinian people, what does it represent for the Israeli people?
Right.
Is it solely a triumph of nation building?
Yeah.
Or does it hold a different meaning? Perhaps one that's been suppressed or overlooked?
That's a thought-provoking question to ponder. It challenges us to consider the multiple narratives and interpretations surrounding this pivotal event.
Right.
And how those narratives shape our understanding of the past, present, and even the potential for a shared future.
Exactly. By grappling with these questions, we can move beyond simplistic binaries.
Okay.
And work towards a more nuanced understanding of this complex historical event.
Right.
And perhaps that understanding can help pave the way for a future.
Yeah.
Built on empathy, reconciliation, and a shared commitment to justice.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've explored the historical context, the events leading up to the Nakba, the systematic expulsions that can place, and the profound and lasting impact this event continues to have on both Palestinians and Israelis.
We've examined the power of narratives.
Absolutely.
The importance of seeking diverse perspectives, and the responsibility we all have to engage with history critically and thoughtfully.
We hope this deep dive has been insightful.
Yeah.
And has provided you, our listener, with a deeper understanding of this complex and crucial historical event.
Right.
Remember, the journey of understanding doesn't end here.
It doesn't.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep searching for the truth, and keep the conversation going.
And with that, we'll leave you to continue your own exploration of this impactful period in history.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you.